lied to him that the baby was his, but he found out the truth and took revenge.
Freaking out. Apparently the kid isn't his. He threw all my stuff out of our house. I need help. Hello, Redditors, a longtime user and fan of this platform, but I've never really had a need to come on here. I am coming on here now because I desperately need advice. I just got kicked out of the house by my husband after he found out that the chat wasn't his. It was a one-time mistake, and I really didn't know how to remedy it. I know you're probably wondering what happened, so let me give you some backstory first. My name is Felicia, and I am a 30-year-old woman. I have been married to my husband, Robin, who is a 32-year-old man for 5 years now. Robin and I met on a dating site. He was very charming, and I instantly got attracted. We dated for a few years before deciding to get married. It was a whirlwind romance, but I never felt that it went too fast. Robin is the exact opposite of me. He is handsome, charming, and ambitious. He has a magnetic personality that draws people towards him effortlessly. He is a successful architect, while I, on the other hand, am a complex character. I am intelligent and warm, but I have insecurities and vulnerabilities, and I am not as popular or as charming as Robin. I was cautious about trying online dating, not knowing what to expect. But Robin's profile caught my eye right away. He seemed really friendly and confident. Our chats were easy, and I felt like we clicked, even through the screen. When we finally met in person, I was drawn to Robin's outgoing personality. He made me feel special, like I was the center of his attention. But deep down, I could tell he had his own insecurities too, which made me feel closer to him. Our relationship just felt right from the start. We enjoyed simple things together, like stealing glances across the room or having heart-to-heart talks. But sometimes I worried that I wasn't as outgoing or impressive as Robin. Despite my doubts, I knew we had something special. I admired Robin's drive and ambition, and he appreciated me for who I was, flaws included. Together, we faced life's challenges with love and support. From the moment we started dating, it was clear that Robin was on a successful path. As an architect, he brought in a steady income, while I pursued my passion as an artist, which unfortunately didn't bring in much money. Robin didn't mind covering the bills. He was just glad to see me doing what I loved. However, his demanding job meant he was often away, leaving me feeling isolated and alone. Despite his best efforts, the loneliness crept in, casting a shadow over our otherwise happy relationship. Having a heart-to-heart with Robin about feeling lonely was tough. He was doing his best juggling work and our relationship, but with him being the main breadwinner, his job kept him away a lot. One night, when Robin was out again for the weekend and I was feeling really low, I ended up at a bar alone. That's where I met John. We hit it off right away, and with a few drinks in me, things got out of hand and we had sex. The next morning, regret hit me hard, and I promised myself never to drink like that again. The idea of coming clean to Robin scared me. I was terrified of hurting him or messing up what we had. So I kept it to myself, hoping I could bury the guilt and move on. I loved Robin too much to lose him, and I knew I would lose him if I ever came clean. The fear of losing Robin was overwhelming, and the thought of confessing filled me with dread. I cherished him deeply and couldn't bear the idea of him walking away because of my mistake. So I made a decision to keep my indiscretion a secret, locking it away deep within me. When John expressed interest in seeing each other again, I shut him down immediately. I made it clear that what happened was a mistake, fueled by alcohol and loneliness, and that I was committed to my relationship with Robin. I hoped that by distancing myself from John, I could bury the memory of that night and move forward. Months passed, and just as life seemed to settle back into a semblance of normalcy, I discovered I was pregnant. I was absolutely horrified when I found out I was pregnant. It felt like my world was crumbling around me. I had been so consumed with the fear of Robin finding out about my infidelity that I completely forgot to take my birth control pill. Deep down, I knew the baby was likely John's, but admitting that to Robin was out of the question. I loved him too much to risk losing him, so I made the gut-wrenching decision to lie and tell him the baby was his. To my surprise, Robin was over the moon when I shared the news with him. His joy was infectious, and he wasted no time in proposing to me. In just a few months, we were married. Despite the whirlwind of happiness surrounding our wedding, guilt gnawed at me relentlessly. I knew I was deceiving Robin, but I convinced myself that it was for the greater good. After all, telling him the truth would have shattered our happiness and torn our family apart. Our honeymoon was like a dream come true, with Robin sparing no expense to make it unforgettable. Despite the challenges of pregnancy, including morning sickness and hormonal swings, Robin was my rock, supporting me every step of the way. His excitement for the baby only intensified my guilt, knowing deep down that the child wasn't his. But the reality of our situation weighed heavily on me. Robin was not only the love of my life, but also my lifeline. He provided for us financially, and without him, I would struggle to make ends meet. The thought of losing him was unbearable, so I buried my guilt and focused on preserving our marriage. Meanwhile, John's attempts to reach out only added to my stress. Each time he tried to contact me, I shut him down, refusing to entertain the possibility of him being the father. I reassured myself that the lie was necessary to protect my marriage and our future as a family. Soon the baby came. He was so cute, and I am going to call him Felix for the sake of privacy. The first few months with Felix were a wild ride of joy and exhaustion. He was a healthy, adorable little guy, and everyone couldn't get enough of him. Robin was over the moon about having a son, and he stepped up big time to help me out. He even dialed back his work hours to be around more, which made all the difference. With Robin's help and support from our families, we got through those tough early days. But as Felix started growing up a bit, I started feeling a bit restless. Don't get me wrong, being a stay-at-home mom was great, but I needed something more. The days at home were starting to blend together, and I missed the challenge of work. So I decided I'd go back to work once Felix was a bit older, maybe around 2 or 3 years old. It wasn't an easy choice, but I knew it was the right one for me. Plus, a break from diapers and baby talk sounded pretty good right about then. Things were great for a while, however. As Felix grew, it became clear to everyone that he didn't quite resemble Robin. The whispers started when he was around a year old, and by the time he was a little over a year, it was hard to ignore. I couldn't shake off the worry that had plagued me during pregnancy. Deep down, I'd prayed that Felix wouldn't take after John in looks. I knew there was no chance he'd look like Robin, but I hoped he'd take after me enough to throw people off the scent. Unfortunately, Felix ended up resembling me a lot, but with a strong resemblance to John, too. It didn't take long for everyone to notice the stark contrast between Felix and Robin. Felix's red hair stuck out like a sore thumb against the backdrop of Robin's blonde locks and my own black hair. It was a real head-scratcher for everyone, including me. I didn't really get how genetics worked, but I was crossing my fingers that Felix would end up with hair like mine or Robin's. But fate had other plans, and Felix ended up with fiery red hair, just like John. As Felix got older, his red hair became the talk of the town, sparking questions about where he got it from. I was relieved when Robin didn't seem bothered by Felix's red hair. He reassured me, saying he knew Felix was his son, no matter the color of his hair. Robin even mentioned that his grandma had red hair, suggesting that might be where Felix got it from. His understanding and acceptance eased some of the worry I had been carrying then. It meant the world to me how Robin always had my back whenever Felix's appearance was questioned. One particular instance stands out, when a cousin of Robin's, who was visiting, couldn't help but comment on Felix's red hair. Instead of letting it become an awkward moment, Robin smoothly stepped in and explained that Felix probably inherited his red hair from their grandma. It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders as Robin defended me and diffused the situation with ease. What struck me most was how the cousin responded. Instead of dwelling on the differences, they praised genetics for its mysterious ways, highlighting how it could uncover hidden traits and bring surprises into the world. It was a reminder that sometimes what makes us unique is also what makes life beautiful. As Felix turned 2, I found myself considering a return to work. I didn't want anything too stressful, but rather something flexible that would still allow me plenty of time with Felix. Remote work wasn't appealing since I was itching to get out of the house. I started browsing job listings, but I wasn't in any rush. Robin, on the other hand, wasn't thrilled about the idea of me going back to work. With his income now higher than before, he didn't see the need for me to work outside the home. I sat down with Robin and laid it all out, explaining why I felt the need to go back to work. Unlike him, I didn't have a wide circle of friends. Robin was the social butterfly, effortlessly charming everyone he met, while I was more of a lone wolf with few connections outside our family. With Felix to care for, my world had become even smaller, especially on days when Robin was away for work. The loneliness weighed heavy on me, and I missed him dearly. The four walls of our home started to feel suffocating, and I yearned for a change of scenery. There was nobody to invite me on girls' night out or to invite me outside for drinks. It was just me. And even though I enjoyed the loneliness, they were days, it felt suffocating. Going back to work wasn't just about earning money. It was about reclaiming a sense of independence and purpose outside the confines of our home. It was a way for me to break free from the isolation and monotony and to feel like I was contributing something meaningful to the world beyond our family and feeling like I was more than just a mom. Robin agreed with me and even apologized for the loneliness I had been feeling. He said he felt genuinely sorry and assured me he was doing his best. I told him there was no need to apologize because, truth be told, I felt sorry too. Robin was putting in long hours at work to provide for us, and he was doing an excellent job of it. After Felix was born, we upgraded to a bigger house with a home theater and a swimming pool. However stupid, John just wouldn't leave me alone. It was frustrating, to say the least. He had been persistent in trying to meet up, and I decided to entertain him this time just to put an end to it for good. Instead of blocking him as I usually did, I responded to his text. We agreed to meet outside of town to avoid being recognized. When we met, I made it clear to John that there was no way Felix could be his child. I explained that Felix was Robin's and that I had taken the morning after pill after that night. John tried to defend himself by pointing out Felix's red hair, claiming it was like his. I warned him that I would involve the police if he continued to harass us. I asked if he had been stalking us, but he denied it, saying he had only seen us at places like the store or the park. I reminded him that red hair ran in Robin's family, making it clear once and for all that Felix wasn't his child. I told him to stop worrying me and explained the situation thoroughly so he wouldn't bother me again. I even mentioned that I had done a DNA test, which finally convinced him to drop it. John apologized for bothering me and assured me he didn't mean to come off as creepy. He was just curious, and if Felix had been his child, he would have wanted a place in their life. I reiterated that Felix wasn't his child and that he shouldn't worry me any further. Then I left. With Felix at his grandparents' and Robin heading to work, it was just me at home. I understood Robin's stress, especially dealing with demanding clients at work. When he suggested I take a break and go out the next day while he stayed home with Felix, I was thrilled. It was rare for Robin to have a free day, and even rarer for him to insist I take time for myself. Since I didn't have many friends to hang out with, most days it was just me and Felix at home, so the prospect of having a day to myself was incredibly exciting. The next day, Robin handed me his credit card and encouraged me to treat myself to some pampering. He planned to take Felix to the park for some quality father-son time. I seized the opportunity and indulged in a day of self-care. I treated myself to a spa session, got my nails done, and even refreshed my hair. It felt like a luxury to have some time just for me, and I savored every moment of it. Returning home, Felix was in high spirits, and he excitedly babbled about his day with Robin at the park, and Robin told me about how he had enjoyed pizza. We spent some time watching TV together, had dinner, and then settled down for bed. However, over the next few days, I noticed Robin's irritability creeping back in. I attributed it to his usual work stress and didn't think much of it at first. As Robin's irritability worsened, he began directing it towards me, which was deeply unsettling. His behavior worsened to the point where he wouldn't interact with Felix much. Communication became strained, with Robin shutting down and refusing to engage in conversation. Despite my attempts to address the issue, Robin insisted that everything was fine and attributed his behavior to work-related stress. This pattern continued for several days, leaving me feeling increasingly concerned and isolated. Despite my attempts to address the issue, Robin insisted that everything was fine and attributed his behavior to work-related stress. This pattern continued for several days, leaving me feeling increasingly concerned and isolated. Feeling concerned about Robin's behavior, I decided to seek help from his parents, who were always understanding and supportive. After discussing it with Robin, we agreed that I would visit them in a few days' time. Robin was fine with the plan, and Robin even encouraged us to go, wanting a day to himself. The next day, Felix and I got ready and headed to his parents' house. It was a pleasant visit, filled with warm conversation and reassurances that Robin's behavior was likely just work-related stress. Felix enjoyed playing there, and his grandparents showered him with affection. After spending several hours there, I realized it was getting late and decided to head home to prepare dinner. However, when I arrived, I was shocked to find not only my belongings on the porch, but also Felix's belongings, indicating that something was seriously wrong. Feeling bewildered and scared, I stood frozen as I stared at my and Felix's belongings strewn on the porch. Why had Robin thrown them out? My heart was racing with confusion and anxiety as I desperately tried calling him, but he refused to answer. Resorting to banging on the door, I hoped my neighbors wouldn't call the cops for the noise. After what felt like an eternity, Robin cracked the door open just enough to peek out and ask what I wanted. I was taken aback. What did he mean? I just wanted to come inside. I had returned from his parents' place feeling stressed, and Felix was tired and needed to sleep. The situation made no sense, and I couldn't understand why Robin was acting this way. However, I soon found out why he was acting this way. Robin looked me dead in the eye and told me he knew Felix wasn't his child. When Robin stared me down and said those words, it felt like my whole world collapsed. I wished I could just vanish into thin air. At first, I nervously chuckled, thinking he was pulling my leg, but his expression told me he was dead serious. He dropped the bombshell that he'd done a DNA test, proving Felix wasn't his biological child. It felt like a punch to the gut. Robin's calm voice contrasted with the fire burning in his eyes as he accused me of betraying him, of trying to pass off another guy's kid as his own. His words hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me stunned and overwhelmed with guilt. I stood there. I was unable to find the right words, as Robin made it clear he never wanted to see me again. Standing there, still reeling from Robin's accusation, I watched as he walked back inside and closed the door. It felt like a punch to the gut, and I went through a whirlwind of emotions right then and there. I could feel the eyes of our nosy neighbors on me, but I didn't want to make a scene or become the talk of the town. I wanted to cry, scream, and beg all at once. But I knew there was no point in begging Robin for forgiveness. He was too stubborn, and I didn't want to subject myself to more humiliation. So I called an Uber to take me and Felix to my parents' house. Packing our things quickly, I left behind the home we had shared and headed for the comfort of my childhood home. Here I am, stuck in my room, feeling utterly defeated. I've been crying my eyes out for what seems like forever. Leaving Robin's place was tough, but now I'm completely falling apart. My folks are mad, of course, but there's not much they can do. They're talking about staging some kind of intervention, hoping to convince Robin to give me another chance. It sounds like a long shot, and honestly, I'm not sure if it'll make any difference. I can't shake this feeling of guilt and dread, knowing I've messed everything up. All I can do now is wait and hope for the best. It's tough right now because my parents are the only ones in my corner, willing to lend a hand. Earlier, I tried reaching out to Robin's parents, hoping they'd offer some support, but that backfired. They picked up the phone, only to give me an earful, making it crystal clear they were onto me. Their anger cut deep, especially since I genuinely cared for them. They'd always been so kind to me, and now I'd gone and betrayed their trust. The guilt weighs heavy on me, knowing I've let them down in such a big way. It's a painful realization that's hard to shake off. Another blow that hit me hard was discovering that Robin had emptied our joint account before I even reached my parents' place. Our joint account was our lifeline, where Robin would deposit money for bills, expenses, and my own needs, since I'm not working much as a stay-at-home mom. It was a major source of financial support for me. But to my shock and dismay, when I checked the account, it was drained completely. Every cent gone. It left me stranded, and I had to rely on my parents to even cover the cost of the Uber ride. It was a painful reminder of just how much damage had been done to our relationship. I honestly don't think Robin will ever forgive, but I can only hope. I need help in the form of advice or suggestions on how to approach Robin. Do you think he'll ever forgive me? Thanks for listening, though. Update. Hi, everyone. I know it's been a while since I last posted, and I honestly didn't expect to be back here. But seeing how much attention my last post received, I feel compelled to share another update with you all. A lot has happened in the past month, and I want to fill you in on the details. First of all, I want to share that Robin and I are sadly getting a divorce. As I mentioned earlier, my parents had promised to stage an intervention to help me mend things with Robin. We tried reaching out to him multiple times, but he refused to pick up, even when we called from a private number. So we decided to take matters into our own hands and headed over to his house, hoping to speak with him face to face. When we arrived at the house, to my relief, Robin was home. Despite the tension between us, he still had a soft spot for my parents because of how kind they had always been to him. So he graciously welcomed us inside, although he did shoot me a disapproving look. Nonetheless, he greeted my parents and my brother warmly and even offered them drinks. I was shocked to hear that. Robin wasn't supposed to know John. He must have noticed my surprise because he went on to explain. John had actually approached him before, claiming that he and I had sex and that he thought Felix was his. At first, Robin didn't believe him, knowing I usually stayed home. But John kept insisting that Felix was his child. As Robin started seeing similarities between John and Felix, he began to wonder if there was any truth to it. That's when he decided to do a DNA test to prove John wrong. I was speechless. There was no defense I could offer. Seeing that Robin wouldn't change his mind, my parents decided it was best to leave. Before we departed, Robin made it clear that divorce papers would be coming my way soon, and he wouldn't be paying child support. He even threatened to sue for paternal fraud to avoid it. I broke down, crying and pleading, but Robin remained unmoved. Eventually, my parents had to physically pull me away from Robin's house. They reminded me that I had brought this upon myself. This is everything that's happened. I'm still at my parents' place, and even though Felix senses something's off, he's too young to fully grasp it. Honestly, I blame John for everything. I'll never forgive him, and he won't ever have a say in Felix's life, no matter what. Thanks to everyone for their support. I just hope others don't make the same mistake I did. Feeling defeated doesn't even begin to describe it. How did I go from a life with luxuries like a home theater and a swimming pool back to my parents' house? Robin had gotten me used to that lifestyle, and now I'm back to square one. Getting back into the workforce after such a long break won't be easy. Thanks for listening, though. I guess it was nice while it lasted. Like my parents said, I brought this on myself. Need advice quickly. I got myself in a big mess. BC, I dated his friend, now he wants to divorce. I am in a very big mess because of my stupidity and desire for something new. I didn't know that he would find out about my abomination. He would actually want to end our union. I love him, and I actually don't see myself marrying another man, but him. What I did is ungodly and disgusting, but why would the consequences or karma deal with only me? Why am I the only one suffering while I was not alone in this whole thing? I know I am the one who is married, and I should have respected the vows that I had made in front of the Lord and our guests, especially our families. It was so evil of me to go against my vows and commit adultery while I am married. But it doesn't change the fact that I was not the only one performing the sinister. I dated his friend, so if he was to cut ties with me, he should also cut ties with his friends. But life is never fair on women's rights. All the guys' friendships have codes, right? I think they call it a bro code, a code whereby you vow not to either date or get into an intimate relationship with your friend's partner or sibling. The guy that I had cheated with had broken the code, but nothing was happening to him, while I was suffering the consequences of the actions that we had made. I really need help on this one. I am somehow confused, but I also want to fix my marriage with my husband. So my husband, Tony, male 35, and I, female 33, met at a mutual friend's wedding. Well, more like at my cousin's wedding. He was a friend of my cousin's husband. We were sitting at the same table. He was and still is a very handsome, clean, and sophisticated gentleman. I remember on the day we met, I had worn a very long dress, so it somehow tripped me and I almost fell. Imagine falling in front of all the people that were in that hall. It would have been such a bummer and embarrassing. So Tony luckily caught me beforehand since I was trying to stand when I tripped, and he was sitting next to me. His touch gave me goosebumps that I didn't even know I had. Not to mention his soft hands. It felt so right when they touched me. Even his gentle gesture was something else. What I felt for Tony was what I can call love at first sight. He didn't try much or said many words, but his gentleness and handsomeness drew me to him. During that day, we were talking and laughing. It was really nice to be with him. He was in good company. He made me forget about anything else. It felt like nothing was existing except for him and I. I even forgot that we were at my cousin's wedding. I had found a friend and also a lover there. I thought I had found the one my soul needed. He was my answered prayers, his gentleness, a big dreamer and a successful man who still had goals to be more successful than he was. I love a man who knows what they want and makes every means to get it. Mind you, at that time I had a plan of starting my own internet cafe and coffee shop, and with Tony's knowledge and skills in IT, I knew I had gained resources to help me start a successful internet cafe. It seemed like it was a blessing in disguise, you know. It felt like with Tony by my side, I would have everything figured out, and it would be successful with his intelligence on board. Since then, we became friends. He taught me a lot about IT that I didn't know. Well, I wanted to start an internet cafe because we didn't have one in Sicily, only in big cities, which was far from where I was staying. So I wanted to help my community get easy access on the internet without even having to go to the big city for it. I made it specifically for students so that they can have easy access to the internet and be able to find school projects information in it without having to waste more money to get to the big city to get it. Tony helped me start the internet cafe, which was very sweet and generous of him. I was glad for the service that he had delivered. He started being a computer tutor. Each and every minute that I would spend with him was always priceless. I still melted in his touch and his voice. It had that kind of thing that makes you feel like you have been given some voodoo, or he uses voodoo to make my heart palpitate. Months later, Tony declared his love for me. Well, I had already felt something for him, and I was falling pretty hard for him, but I couldn't tell him. I was protecting my heart from being rejected and my ego and pride. He told me how much he enjoys spending time with me and thanked the opportunity that I had given of trusting him with my community children and students. Well, Tony was not from Sicily. He had first come for the wedding, which was the first day that we had first met. So Tony and I dated for 2 years. We were still in the phase of knowing each other very well before we tied the knot. It was the best option, and it gave us time to learn more about each other. I was happy with the fact that Tony was not rushing to any marriage. Yes, we were committed to each other. About 1.5 years later, he popped the biggest question. My love for him kept escalating. I don't know if I was getting obsessed with Tony, but I couldn't live without him. Even if he was not around or we were not talking either on the call or text, I would feel like he was up to no good. You know when you try to contact your partner and his phone keeps either putting you on hold or gets to voicemail at the same time? I was somehow insecure and I didn't want any woman to even see my Tony's side. He was mine and mine alone. Well, Tony was residing in Agrigento in the southern coast of Sicily, while my home was in Piazza Armerina, which was about 1 hour and some minutes drive apart. So he would go home for like a week, then come to see me whenever he was free, or I would go to his city when I was not busy. Our love was like a flower. It kept blossoming every minute that we would spend with each other or when we were communicating. Months later, well, we had gotten 2 years of dating, so we got married on the day of our dating anniversary. You know, it's really nice and fulfilling having to spend the rest of your life with your favorite person who is also your partner. We got to share all our flaws, our dreams, our future, and plans. After getting married, we moved to Cefalù, where we wanted to start our own family. We were living the dream, and I couldn't be much happier. I mean, why wouldn't you be happy when you have been given a chance to spend the rest of your life with someone who you fell in love with on the first day that you saw him? I fell in love with Tony the day we had first met. Deep down, I knew that he was my soulmate and my caregiver. He didn't have to try hard to make me happy and feel complete. He knew how to make me feel better during my dull days. He always knew how to put a smile on my face. But you know, when I was to be asked why I cheated or dated his friend, I don't know how I would answer that question because I have no response for it. Anyway, time passed. Tony started getting too busy to spend time with me. Yes, the intimate moments were still fine, but I needed his attention and I wanted to spend more time with him. I mean, we had stayed far away from each other for almost 2 years when we were still dating. Ever since we got married, we had spent a couple of times together. We would go out, eat out, or go to play games. My relationship or my marriage with Tony was somehow great because we would always allow ourselves to be young again. Playing games, going out on ice cream dates, attending exhibitions together. We were stress-free and carefree. It was like we were in our very own dimension, living with our rules. So one sunny Saturday, Tony had left the house to buy meat. He had asked me to prepare something since his friends were coming over to celebrate his other friend's arrival in Italy. I have heard that he was residing in Los Angeles, LA, but now he had relocated to this side. So I prepared everything, and Tony's other friends started coming with their partners. Of course, everyone was having a good time up until the man of the day arrived. You know when someone says, "I feel like I am looking at Jesus himself"? Well, that was what I felt. His body structure, cleanly trimmed mustache, his sexy hazel blue eyes. I was taken aback by the guy. He was really handsome. You know, the kind of handsome Leonardo DiCaprio. That was how he looked. His eyes looked naughty though, and I love being naughty. The guy was not at my wedding with Tony. I had heard that he was working since he was a doctor. The guy was introduced as Bradley, male, 33. His appearance was charming and mind-blowing. You know when you see someone for the first time and automatically feel attracted to them? That was how I felt with Bradley. I was not attracted to him because of his handsomeness only, but I would sometimes imagine myself being intimate with him. I imagined myself and him riding and grinding each other. My imaginations went wild to a point that I would see him exploring my whole body, his pinkish, sexy lips kissing every fiber of my body. I know it was wrong of me to drool and think like that for my husband's friend, but I couldn't help it. I mean, the guy was everything and more. I just wanted or craved for only one night with him, then it would have been enough for me. I am a witch and a loose cannon, I know, but how was I supposed to stop my mind and desire to think about the poor guy? Mind you, that time he was going to be staying with us for some time up until he gets his own place to stay. So imagine the torture and pressure that I would be feeling. I know it's sinister to have these kinds of thoughts for your husband's friend, but I couldn't help it. Only one night with him was going to solve everything. As much as I love my handsome, smart husband, Bradley was the type of guy that you can only have a crush on and date because he was too extreme. His handsomeness, the way he was speaking, would make any woman drop their panties for him. 1 week later, we were still staying with Bradley. Well, most of the time I was with him in the house. He is a very cool guy, carefree, talkative, and funny. He easily adjusted to the new environment and it was going well for him. I had seen him doing workouts a few times in the morning. His abs were something else. I felt like I would touch them. I had so many dirty thoughts for the poor guy, and I really wanted to stop thinking like that with my husband's friend. During that week, I remembered that I was in the kitchen preparing breakfast for both me and him. He came in wearing only a very tight vest and jogging shorts. He just stayed with me in the kitchen, keeping me company. Only if he knew that his company was a destruction to me. He started asking me about my relationship or my marriage with Tony, wanting to know how it was. I told him what he needed to hear and found it enough to share. I couldn't tell him everything about my marriage. Yes, he was my husband's friend, but I couldn't tell him everything that is going on between Tony and I. Mind you, that time, Ton and I had been arguing a lot lately about him being always absent even when his friend is around. That led to a very heated and biggest argument. My husband and I were slowly drifting apart. Yes, our connection and love would always be there, but we were drifting apart. I felt like he was trying to push me away because even when he is under stress and pressure, he no longer confides in me as his wife. I would sometimes wonder who he confides to if he was shutting me out the way he was doing. It really hurt me having to beg every day for your partner to give you the attention that you need. The more I was spending time with Bradley, the more we got closer. I ended up confiding in him about Tony's behavior because it was really shocking to me. I didn't know who to talk to, so Bradley was the only person who was willing to listen to me vent about my marriage. I know I shouldn't have done that, but what I was supposed to do. Because I couldn't keep my sadness and heartbreaking moments inside my chest. I was going to burst, and a lot would have been destroyed. So Bradley prepared snacks for us, especially marshmallows and hot chocolate, which were my favorite when I was not feeling well or feeling down. I appreciated the time and ear that Bradley had led me and made me vent in him. I needed to offload, my chest was too heavy. As I was crying like that, Bradley hugged me and promised me that he would speak to Tony. Since Tony had been so distant, especially after the argument that we had, he started going to work early in the morning and came back late at night. Bradley's hug was actually what I needed. You know, the kind of hug that is warm and welcoming, the one that makes you feel like everything is going to be okay. So as we were still hugging, I found myself kissing him. We kissed and things got out of hand. A kiss escalated. We ended up doing the deed in the lounge. Mind you, that time I had forgotten that Tony had recently planted CCTV cameras in the house. I had completely forgotten about that, and Bradley didn't even know about it. Since that indescribable day, Bradley and I continued seeing each other. Sometimes we would get intimate in my marital home, while some other time we would go to a nearest hotel to book for the day. We couldn't book for the night because my husband was going to be suspicious. We did our thing carefully because if Tony was to find us, we both knew that we were going to suffer the consequences, and I would be left a divorced woman. Bradley was giving it to me so sweet and gentle. He was very explosive. He knew how to explore a woman's body and make her feel foreign and end up speaking in tongues. He knew every spot to touch to make me submit to his commands. Well, he loved gentle, rough, intimate moments. I didn't even know that there was actually gentle, rough type of intimate sessions. I learned a lot from Bradley, even some new positions that someone would think are extreme, but they are very enjoyable and nice. I was not a submissive wife to my husband, but with Bradley, I was submissive without even thinking twice. My husband loved missionary intimacy, while Bradley loved exploring new positions, and I learned a lot. I mean, my own husband was a 1 or 2 rounds type of person, then he would get tired and fall asleep. Bradley, on the other hand, was a dragon. He was spitting fire when it comes to intimacy. He would make you go all night, and even wake you in the morning. He would always leave my private area burning and tired. The guy knew his thing, and up until today I complimented him. He is the best. My relationship with Bradley went on and on for like 9 months. We were still careful, but Bradley didn't want us to be private. He wanted us to be seen in public as dating people, and that was not what I had wanted. As much as I was enjoying the intimacy and everything that Bradley was offering, but I loved my husband so much. I wouldn't just leave my husband for an intimacy freak like Bradley. He is doing me good and exploring my body the way I had been desiring, but I wouldn't divorce my husband to be with him. He didn't understand that our relationship was an intimate relationship only and nothing more or less. But the poor guy had caught feelings, and that was not what we had agreed on. It was purely and strictly intimacy. Weeks later, I ended my affair with Bradley. I felt like I had destroyed my marriage and went against my wedding vows. I shouldn't have allowed temptations and desires to control me like that. I should have respected myself and my marriage with Tony. Bradley had started to catch feelings, and it was not looking good because we would sometimes argue about his obsessive behavior. I don't know why he was suddenly obsessed because we had an agreement of no strings attached, but he decided to attach strings on our thing and the whole thing got crushed. I went back to my marital home. I wished to change the location and buy a new home for Tony and myself because the house held so many memories. Even the memory of myself committing adultery for the first time was in my marital home. I felt like I had disrespected my husband in the worst way possible, and there was no way to undo what I had done. I know I had wanted or craved for Bradley for at least one night, but it shouldn't have escalated like it did. And guess what happened? I was F***seeked. Few days later, Tony was back at home. Well, he was working at home most of the time. The guilt was eating me up like a deadly disease. I had tried to act normal around my husband, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew something was wrong. I couldn't bear looking at him and acting like a happy wife while I knew what I had done. Tony, being as nonchalant as ever, didn't seem to notice anything amiss. The guilt and anxiety of my abomination grew with each passing day. The following week, it was a Monday afternoon. I was watering the garden when our family lawyer came to the house. I was so confused by why Hamilton, our lawyer, would come to our house. I knew that he wouldn't come if it was not important or urgent, so I started getting palpitations. My mind drifted to Tony. I had thought something had happened to him. I couldn't bear to see myself being a widow. My mind was busy taking me to places that I didn't want to see myself in. Hamilton asked to speak with me and told me that it was important. I knew that he wouldn't leave his specious and fancy office and come to my house if it wasn't important. So we went inside and he gave me an envelope. He told me that he was sent by Tony and that I should read everything properly first before signing. Another thing he told me was that I was free to fight and try to save whatever that would be lost after signing, but he didn't think fighting would be a good idea. The way he was speaking in riddles, I got conscious and ended up opening the envelope. When I opened the envelope, I couldn't believe my eyes. I felt like my heart was stepped on by an elephant and my body was hit by a truck. I was lost in words. I told Hamilton that I wouldn't let Tony divorce me without a fight, and I was not going to sign those divorce papers. I didn't know why Tony would want to divorce me. That time, the abomination that I had done didn't even cross my mind. I kept trying to sort the puzzles and asking myself, why would Tony suddenly want to divorce me? A few days later, Tony and I were in the magistrate's office with both our lawyers. I couldn't just let him take everything away from me. I was asked to state why I didn't want to sign the divorce papers. I told them that I couldn't let Tony, my husband, leave me without any explanation on why he would wake up and decide that he wanted to divorce me and take our home. And I couldn't just let him break my heart like that. When it was Tony's turn to speak or defend himself, he said the worst hurtful things to me. He called me names and told me that he was regretting ever marrying me. If he knew I was a witch that I was, he wouldn't even bother looking my way the day we met. He was furious to see that even temple veins were popping. He looked murderous, and he wasn't the Tony that I had been married to. He then dropped a huge bomb at me that I had long forgotten about. He told me that he knew about my affair with Bradley, his friend, and that I had been seen going to the hotel with Bradley when he was at work. I couldn't believe how he got the information. He told me that he had been acting like everything is normal and okay, but he knew all the dirt that I had done, so he wants nothing to do with me, and I should just go back home and continue running my internet cafe and a coffee shop. I denied every allegation that he was accusing me of. I even denied being in any relationship with Bradley. While I was still fighting, screaming, and kicking, Tony gave Hamilton a USB, and there it was. All the evidence of my abomination was there. I didn't know what to say nor do. I had no way back. I didn't even know how to defend myself. It was really humiliating and embarrassing. I tried to apologize to Tony, but he wanted to hear nothing from me. I had no other choice but to obey his request. I went back home and signed the papers. My heart was shuttered. Even today, when I think of everything, my heart breaks. I miss Tony so much, and I regret everything that I have done. What should I do to get my husband back? I can't let him go like that. I need advice quickly.